There is an unusual truth about women that almost no one dares to speak out loud. You do not look younger because of the symmetry of your face. You look younger because your spirit refuses to grow old. Think deeply about this. How can two women born in the same year walk through the same world? Yet one glows like sunrise while the other moves as if her soul has grown heavy with dust. Here lies the hidden secret. Time touches the body, but it only enters the soul when you open the door to it. So let me ask you something. A question that will echo inside you long after this video ends. What if the youth you think has slipped away was never in your skin, but in your courage, in your truth, in the fire within you that has only been waiting to be remembered? Stay with me, because if you truly listen to what comes next, you will awaken something ancient inside your being. You will understand that you are a queen, and it is time you begin to walk like one. A youthful appearance rises from a soul at peace. There is a quiet wisdom that takes years to grasp, yet when it finally touches you, it feels like a truth you've carried since birth. A woman does not look younger because the world has protected her. She looks younger because she did not allow the world to harden her. She survived storms that would have crushed others, yet she did not let the storm seep into her spirit. She let the rain fall, yes, but she never let it drown her inner light. You can recognize this in small, almost invisible details. In the softness around her eyes, in the calmness in her breath when she sits quietly, in the warmth that rises naturally from her presence. She does not battle life. She does not fight time. She simply moves with it, allowing each moment to shape her without allowing any moment to imprison her. And that is where the difference lies. Many women age quickly because they are always resisting. They resist what happened. They resist what never happened. They resist who walked away. They resist who stayed. They resist the woman they became along the journey. But the younger-looking woman carries no resistance inside her. Life has touched her, yes, tested her, even wounded her, but it has never captured her. She learned to release before releasing became a painful necessity. She learned to breathe deeply before anxiety could carve itself into her chest. She learned to forgive herself the moment she realized she had been fighting her own reflection, not the world around her. And when the soul is left unburdened, it finds a mysterious way to shine through the body. It softens the lines. It brightens the eyes. It slows the visible aging in ways no cream or serum could ever replicate. Because she is not aging from the outside. She is aging from within. And she ages from freedom, not fear. She does not cling to the memories that bruise her. She lets them pass through like flowing water. She does not replay the betrayals, the arguments, the disappointments. She observes them once, learns what she must learn, and then releases them back into the river of her life. And just like water, she keeps flowing. That is why she looks younger. Not because time refused to touch her, but because she learned to move with time instead of letting time pull her down. This kind of woman carries a secret essence that cannot be imitated. You see it in the way she walks. You hear it in the depth of her silence. You feel it simply by being near her. It is the presence of someone who has accepted herself. Not the filtered version, not the version that performs, not the version that apologizes for existing, but the real, raw, uncovered self she once tried to hide. An untroubled soul is not something gifted at birth. It is shaped through storms that question your worth and moments that tempt you to shrink. But instead of collapsing, she expanded. Instead of breaking, she softened. And instead of becoming bitter, she became light. And that light, that softness is what people mistake for youth. Because youth is not in the skin. Youth is in the spirit. And when a woman accepts this truth, she begins to shine from a place no mirror can reflect and no world can dim. And the most remarkable part is that she never seeks applause for this shine, because she understands that true radiance cannot be copied, stolen, or claimed by anyone else. It is earned, it is lived, it is embodied. And that is why she walks with such calm certainty. But there is another reason she appears younger. Something quiet. Something woven into the way she carries herself. She carries herself like a whisper, not a shout. 2. She carries herself like a whisper, not a shout. There is a rare grace in a woman who does not need to announce her worth. She does not push herself forward. She does not chase attention. She does not force her presence upon the world like a storm beating at the windows. Instead, she arrives gently, like a breeze slipping through an open door, felt before it is fully understood. It is not shyness. It is not modesty. It is mastery. Her quietness is not silence. It is intention. Some women shout because they are terrified of being unseen. They raise their voices, their energy, their presence, hoping someone will finally tell them they matter. But the younger, looking woman never seeks significance through noise. She knows true presence is not created by sound. It is created by alignment. When a woman understands herself, her truth, her worth, her identity, she no longer needs volume. Her energy speaks for her. You can sense her arrival without ever seeing her face. Her spirit steps into the room before she does. She has learned to move with ease, not urgency. And that ease becomes its own youthful glow, because nothing ages the soul faster than the need to be validated. She does not perform to prove she exists. She simply exists. Her softness is chosen, not accidental. Her stillness is strength disguised as quiet. She listens more than she speaks, not because she lacks words, but because she is fully present. She reads the world, the people she loves, the unspoken currents beneath every interaction. She hears what others miss. She sees what others overlook. And in that depth, she becomes unforgettable, someone whose presence lingers long after she is gone. When she speaks with weight, not loudness. Weight. Her words carry the maturity of a soul that has listened far more than it has reacted. Her movements carry the confidence of someone who no longer performs for approval. Her energy carries the softness of a woman who has healed the wounds that once craved the world's applause. And that softness, that softness, is what keeps her young. Softness dissolves tension. Tension ages the face. Softness restores the glow. She knows this instinctively. She won her battles not by roaring, but by knowing when to be still, when to pause, when to breathe, when to surrender control so life could reveal something greater than fear. She has tasted rage. She has tasted heartbreak. She has tasted disappointment so sharp it threatened to change her. But she refused to let those emotions root inside her. She allowed them to pass. And because of that, her energy stays fluid, not rigid. Rigid energy ages. Fluid energy rejuvenates. This is why she always seems to glow, even on the days she is tired. She has mastered the balance between power and grace. When she speaks, it sounds like truth. When she moves, it feels like prayer. When she looks at you, she sees you. Not your mask, not your performance, but your essence. And in that gentle recognition, she becomes timeless. But beneath her softness lies something even more powerful, something easily misunderstood. Her energy is light, even when her life is heavy. 3. Her energy is light, even when her life is heavy. This may be the most misunderstood quality of all. People see a woman who laughs softly, who breathes calmly, who glows gently, and they imagine her life must be simple, her path smooth, her story effortless. But if only they knew. The women who look the lightest are often the ones who have carried the heaviest shadows. They have known grief deep enough to hollow them. They have cried in silences so heavy they felt like breaking. They have walked through seasons where hope felt distant, where love felt harsh, where faith stretched thin. But instead of sinking, they learned to float. They understood that heaviness is part of life, but suffering is a choice. They realized that while pain is inevitable, surrender is optional. And so they made a different choice, one that reshaped their spirit and rewrote their story. They refused to let heaviness define them. She does not deny her struggles. She does not hide her wounds. She simply refuses to carry them forever. A heavy spirit ages the body. A light spirit frees it. When life weighed her down, she did not hold her breath until she collapsed. She exhaled, slow, deep, intentional. She released what she could not control. She surrendered what was never meant to be hers. She accepted that some seasons must end, no matter how tightly she once clung to them. And every time she released something, a memory, a person, a disappointment, she grew lighter. This lightness became her beauty. People feel calm around her. Not because she has no problems, but because her problems no longer own her. She moves with a holy steadiness, a softness tempered by fire. She has endured enough pain to break a heart, yet she continues to love. She has faced enough fear to freeze anyone in their tracks, yet she continues to rise. Her youthfulness does not come from escaping life. It comes from transcending it. She has learned to sit with her pain without letting it define her. She has learned to hold sadness without drowning in it. She has learned to walk beside uncertainty without losing her center. This is what makes her appear younger. Not the absence of suffering, but the mastery of it. She does not let heaviness stay. She transforms it. She breathes through it. She grows from it. And because of that, her being glows quietly, undeniably, endlessly. She understands something profound. Life will always carry weight, but she does not have to carry all of it. And it is within that realization that her true beauty is born. A beauty untouched by time, untouched by fear, untouched by the weight of her story. A beauty that flows into everything she touches and becomes the foundation for the next truth waiting to unfold. Because when a woman learns to lighten her energy despite the heaviness of her circumstances, she steps into a power even deeper than youth. The power to unlearn everything that once tried to dim her. For she does not cling to the past. She unlearns it. There comes a moment in a woman's life when she realizes that holding on is far more exhausting than letting go. Not because she has grown weak, and not because she is surrendering, but because she finally understands something painfully, beautifully true. The past does not move. Only she does. For years she may have tried to drag old memories into her new life, hoping they would someday heal or make sense or stop feeling unresolved. She may have replayed moments again and again, believing she could rewrite them if she remembered them deeply enough. But the past is a closed book, and the more she kept reading it, the more she remained trapped as a character in a story that had already ended. Youth fades quickest in those who cling to what has already gone. There is a heaviness that grows from carrying what no longer belongs to you. A woman who ages herself with regret, guilt, or sorrow unknowingly ties her spirit to yesterday. And yesterday has nothing left to offer her. But the woman who looks younger than her years does something rare. She unlearns. She unlearns the beliefs that convinced her she was unworthy. She unlearns the habits that made her shrink. She unlearns the roles she performed to earn love. She unlearns the lies someone else planted into her identity. Unlearning is not forgetting. Unlearning is liberation. It is choosing not to live inside stories written by fear or shaped by people who never understood her fullness. It is loosening her grip on pain, not because it didn't matter, but because she matters more. It is reclaiming her narrative, word by word, memory by memory, breath by breath. Some say time heals, but time only heals what you allow yourself to release. Everything else hardens into emotional scar tissue. She understands this. That is why she no longer clings. She knows healing is not forcing wounds to close. It is the gentle surrender of no longer reopening them. She knows emotional freedom is not a gift. It is a discipline. Unlearning takes courage because it requires facing truths she once avoided, accepting realities she once resisted, and stepping into new versions of herself. the old her could never have imagined. When she unlearns the past, she returns to her body with softness. She returns to her mind with clarity. She returns to her spirit with space. Space to breathe, space to begin again, space to invite peace into rooms where chaos once lived. And that spaciousness reveals itself in her face, in her posture, in the gentle ease of her shoulders. It shows in the way she laughs without hesitation. It shows in the lightness she carries, as if she is finally living from the inside out instead of from the past forward. And this kind of woman becomes ageless. Not because her life is perfect, but because her past no longer imprisons her. She knows youth is not the absence of years. Youth is the absence of emotional burdens. So she releases them one by one, layer by layer, memory by memory. And with every release she becomes more alive. She becomes more present, more compassionate, more open, more herself. The past may have shaped her, but it will not define her. The past may have wounded her, but it will not own her. The past may have walked beside her, but it will not walk ahead of her. And as she steps out of yesterday, she steps into something far more radiant, far more luminous, the inner glow that rises from genuine quiet joy. 5. Her smile is not for the world. It is for herself. There is something profoundly beautiful about a woman who smiles without performing. Not the smile she puts on for pictures. Not the polite smile she offers in conversations. Not the practiced smile she once used to hide the chaos inside. But the true smile, the soft one, the one that rises from inner alignment. It is the smile that comes when she sits alone and remembers how far she has journeyed. The smile that spreads gently when she realizes she survived what once felt unbearable. The smile that appears when she reconnects with her desires, her dreams, her sacred joy. This smile belongs to her, not to the world, not to a man, not to approval, not to validation. It is a smile of recognition, a recognition of her own light. The world has taught many women to smile as a mask, to soften the discomfort of others, to hide their exhaustion, to keep the peace even when their spirit was quietly breaking. Those smiles fade quickly because they are borrowed, not born. But the smile of the younger, looking woman, the woman who has learned peace, wisdom, and healing, is rooted, grounded, honest. It rises from a well the world cannot drain, from a self-love that is quiet yet unshakable, from a joy not purchased but cultivated through patience and truth. Her smile is the reflection of an inner world she built with her own hands, a world she protected, tended to, and watered with resilience. And here is the sacred truth: when a woman smiles for herself, the universe softens around her, because that smile is not decoration, it is revelation. It reveals her healing. It reveals her strength. It reveals her softness. It reveals the chapter she wrote in silence. People assume she smiles because life has been kind. But she smiles because she has learned to be kind to herself. She has learned to soothe her own heart, to comfort the younger version of herself who once felt overlooked. Her smile is medicine. Her smile is memory. Her smile is freedom. And freedom reveals itself on the face. It lifts the eyes, opens the breath, brightens the skin, softens the jaw, and creates a glow no product can imitate. When peace lives inside a woman, beauty rises effortlessly from her being. Yet this quiet, real, self-born smile carries another truth woven deeply within it. It reveals something people feel but cannot name. She has learned how to protect her inner weather. She knows how to preserve the climate of her inner world, the way others guard their physical homes. She understands that storms will always come, but she will not let them settle inside her. She refuses to let other people's chaos become her emotional atmosphere. She does not allow negativity to take root in her mind. She has learned something simple yet profound. She cannot control the world, but she can control the world within her. She knows her clarity, her peace, her joy are sacred, and sacred things require boundaries. Sacred things require intention. Sacred things require protection. So she chooses her conversations with care, not out of fear but out of respect for her spirit. She chooses who may enter her heart not because she is guarded, but because she is wise. She chooses what she consumes mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because she knows everything she lets in shapes her internal ecosystem. She protects her inner weather because she knows how easily it can be disturbed, how quickly a careless word can become a storm, how fast disappointment can turn into thunder, how unresolved conflict can become emotional humidity that suffocates joy. She checks her spirit the way others check the sky. She notices shifts. She senses when her peace is threatened. And instead of ignoring the disturbance, she pauses, breathes, recalibrates. She responds, she does not react. Reaction is a storm. Response is a choice. She does not let the world dictate her calm. She creates her calm again and again. Even when life is loud, she remains rooted. Even when people are unpredictable, she remains aligned. Even when emotions rise, she remains anchored in herself. Her inner weather stays clear because she tends to it daily. She speaks gently to herself. She releases frustration quickly. She forgives herself generously. She reflects before she explodes. She chooses peace even when pride tempts her toward chaos. And her body responds. Her eyes brighten, her breath deepens, her skin softens. Her energy lifts because the body always reveals the weather of the soul. A woman who tends to her inner climate creates a sanctuary of youthfulness around her. A sanctuary so strong, so gentle, so rooted that it becomes impossible to age her spirit. But this protection, this peace, this daily inner maintenance gives birth to something even more powerful. A truth she discovers in the next unfolding: the body ages with time. Yes, but the spirit ages only when you stop listening to it. And so she listens. She listens to her body as if it were a temple. Because there comes a moment in a woman's life when she realizes her body is not merely a vessel she lives inside. It is a sacred place she tends to. It is the quiet guardian she once ignored, the wise companion she once overworked, the ancient friend she forgot to sit with. And only when she begins to listen, truly listen, does she understand how deeply her body has been speaking to her all along. She hears the fatigue she once pushed through. She recognizes the tension she once dismissed. She honors the hunger for rest, for breath, for peace. Instead of shaming herself for being human, her body, once treated like a battlefield of expectations, becomes a sanctuary again, a place where the world no longer dictates her pace, her worth, or her direction. And then she notices something miraculous. When she softens into herself, her body softens back. When she stops demanding perfection, her muscles release. When she allows herself to feel deeply and fully, her heart no longer needs to scream through exhaustion or anxiety just to be heard. Listening to her body becomes devotion, becomes a ritual, becomes a return. She moves differently through the world. She rests without guilt because she finally understands that rest is not a reward. It is a requirement. She nourishes herself unapologetically because she realizes her body is not a problem to fix. It is a home to care for. And she begins to understand what many never do: the body whispers long before it ever cries out. Whispers of unease, discomfort, depletion. Whispers that reveal the truth of the environments she inhabits, the people she surrounds herself with, the emotions she stores, the habits she tolerates. And when she listens, truly listens, she can no longer pretend she does not know. She can no longer betray herself by staying where her body tightens. She can no longer shrink herself to fit into spaces where her breath becomes shallow. Her intuition sharpens as her body relaxes. Her clarity rises as her nervous system calms. She becomes attuned not just to the pace of life around her, but to the rhythm of life within her. And slowly she returns to the understanding she once forgot: her body is not something to control. It is something she is invited to be in relationship with, a dynamic, evolving, truthful companion. The temple that tells her when something is right, when something is wrong, when something is aligned, and when something is asking to be released. And as she honors this temple, she discovers a love entirely different from the love she once chased. A love that rises quietly from within, like morning light. She becomes a woman who no longer collapses under pressure because she listens before she breaks. She no longer forces herself to endure because she knows endurance is not strength, alignment is. She no longer answers to expectations because she has learned to answer to the truth spoken by her own body. And just when she believes she has learned all the wisdom her body holds, she discovers another revelation rising gently inside her. Because once she learns to honor the language of her body, she begins to understand the deeper language of her heart. Her heart never closed, just became selective. A woman who listens deeply to herself no longer confuses protection with isolation. She no longer shuts down her heart out of fear. She refines her boundaries out of wisdom. Her heart does not harden, it becomes discerning. It becomes a gate that opens only for energy that feels safe, present, and genuine. She understands something that took years to learn. Keeping her heart open does not mean giving it away. For so long, she believed love required endless availability, endless forgiveness, endless tolerance. She thought softness meant surrendering her power. She thought openness meant letting everyone in. She thought love meant enduring even what harmed her. But now she knows better. Her heart remains open, but not exposed. Tender, but not unguarded. Warm, but not accessible to all. She has learned that not everyone who knocks deserves to enter. Not everyone who smiles deserves trust. Not everyone who wants access deserves presence. Yet she does not close herself off. No, that would betray her nature. She is built from compassion, shaped by intuition, moved by deep currents of feeling. She does not lock her heart. She simply chooses who may walk inside. And she chooses slowly. She watches how someone speaks when they are frustrated. She observes how they treat those who can offer them nothing. She notices how they show up when no one is watching. She pays attention to the energy behind their words, the intention behind their affection, the truth beneath their charm. If her heart is a doorway, then her discernment is the lock. And she, the key holder, is unhurried, wise, grounded. She has learned that love is not about who wants her. It is about who respects her, who honors her energy, who brings peace instead of noise. She chooses clarity instead of confusion, steadiness instead of chaos. Her heart is selective because she values the one life she has. Her heart is selective because she understands the cost of giving access to the wrong person. Her heart is selective because she carries the memory of times she loved too quickly, trusted too deeply, stayed too long. And yet, she remains open. Not because she is naive, but because she knows the world does not change through fear. It changes through wisdom. She understands that when the right presence enters her life, her heart will recognize it before her mind does. It will soften, warm, expand not from innocence but from alignment. Selectivity is not bitterness. It is maturity. It is self-respect woven into instinct. It is the quiet reminder, I am worth choosing carefully. And as she becomes more selective with her heart, she becomes more connected to her inner world, the place where silence speaks the loudest truths. Because when the noise fades and the world quiets, she discovers that the deepest guidance rises from the space where she meets herself. She embraces silence like a friend. There is a particular strength in the woman who no longer fears silence, who no longer runs from stillness, who no longer fills the empty spaces with noise. She does not depend on distraction to feel alive. Instead, she turns towards silence as if greeting an old companion. She understands that silence is not the absence of life. It is the presence of truth. Silence is not loneliness, it is clarity. Silence is not emptiness, it is depth. She sits with herself in the quiet places where others feel restless. She breathes into stillness that makes others uncomfortable. And in those pauses, She hears the things people miss when they rush, when they fear, when they distract themselves from their own souls. In silence, she hears her intuition rising like a steady flame. In silence, she feels tension melting gently from her body. In silence, she meets the woman she is becoming, the one shaped not by noise but by presence. She no longer fears being alone with her thoughts, because she has learned they are not enemies, they are messengers. They reveal where she needs healing, boundaries, rest, or change. Silence becomes her mirror, her sanctuary, her teacher. It teaches her she is not defined by the world's voices, but by the truth she hears when everything else falls away. It teaches her that peace is not found outside, it is cultivated inside. It teaches her that wisdom is quiet. It teaches her that the spirit has its own language, heard only when the world softens. And in that stillness, she discovers that her deepest strength was never her ability to endure noise. It was her ability to find peace where others find fear. In that peace, she reconnects with something sacred, the rhythm of her own existence, the soft pulse whispering, "You are here. You are whole. You are alive." Silence does not shrink her, it expands her. It does not empty her, it fills her. It does not isolate her, it reconnects her. And in embracing silence, she becomes unshakable in a way noise could never create. She becomes rooted, anchored, centered. Her presence deepens. Her energy shifts. People feel something different around her, a calmness, a clarity, a groundedness that cannot be faked. Because silence has become her foundation, her refuge, her guide. And it is in this quiet inner space that the next stage of her becoming awakens. The part of her journey that whispers, if silence can transform her within, imagine who she will become when she carries that stillness into the world. She no longer competes. She creates. There is a rare kind of power in the woman who refuses to waste her energy outrunning anyone. A woman who realizes competition is a game designed to distract her from her own brilliance. She does not look left or right. She does not compare timelines. She does not shrink to fit into lanes others run in. She creates her own path because she knows comparison steals more than joy. It steals purpose. It steals clarity. It steals the ability to hear her own calling beneath the noise of other people's accomplishments. But now she recognizes that her gifts are unique threads woven into the fabric of her existence, and no amount of competition can accelerate or replace what she is meant to offer the world. She understands that the world is not transformed by those who fight for space, but by those who create space entirely. So she creates. She creates from her depth, from her wounds, from her healing, from her courage. She creates from the silence she has learned to trust. She creates from the wisdom her body has whispered for years. She creates from the lessons she never asked for, but mastered through living. And the beauty of what she creates carries her signature, her energy, her truth, her voice. No one can imitate it because no one has lived her journey. No one has walked her storms, held her heartbreaks, breathed through her rebirths. So she no longer competes. Because the race ended the moment she realized she had been running on a path designed for someone else. Creation for her is not performance. It is expression. It is revelation. It is liberation. She wakes each morning not asking, "How do I prove myself?" but instead, "What wants to be born through me today?" And with that question, she steps into a life that feels like her own. A life that expands, not constricts. A life that flows, not fights. A life that rises, not compares. She understands now that competing exhausts the spirit, but creating nourishes it. Competing fills the world with noise, but creating fills the world with meaning. Competing comes from scarcity, but creating rises from abundance. The abundance of ideas, expression, possibility. And as she continues to create, something profound reveals itself. The more she creates, the less she relies on validation. The more she creates, the less she fears judgment. The more she creates, the more she returns to herself. Her power becomes quiet but undeniable. not the loud confidence of someone trying to be seen, but the calm certainty of someone who already knows her place in the world is secure because she is shaping it with her own hands. Creation becomes her identity. Creation becomes her peace. Creation becomes her power. And as she settles deeper into this artistic, intuitive way of living, she understands that the creation she treasures most is not the work she produces, but the woman she is becoming through it. And eventually, she learns something even deeper, because once she awakens to the power of creation, she realizes she must also protect that power from the energies that once silenced her. She refuses to become what hurt her. A woman who creates from her essence knows she cannot afford to become a reflection of the pain she has endured. She cannot carry the bitterness of those who tried to break her. She cannot mirror the cruelty of those who wounded her. She cannot harden herself into the shape of the disappointments she survived. So she refuses. She refuses to let her spirit twist into the lightness of those who mishandled her. She refuses to let betrayal turn her cold. She refuses to let disappointment make her cynical. She refuses to let heartbreak teach her to close herself. She refuses to let pain define her identity. And why? Because she has learned a profound truth: the pain shapes you only when you do not shape it back. Yes, she has suffered. Yes, she has been betrayed, underestimated, misjudged, dismissed. She has been treated as if her softness were weakness, as if her loyalty were naivety, as if her kindness were foolishness. But she has risen, not by becoming like those who harmed her, but by becoming their opposite. She answers dishonesty with integrity. She responds to rejection with self-respect. She responds to chaos with calm. She responds to cruelty with boundaries, not rage. Because she understands that healing is not about forgetting what hurt you. It is about refusing to embody it. She looks at her past and learns, but she will not carry the residue of it into her future. Her heart has been broken, yet it is not broken-hearted. Her trust has been shaken, yet it is not untrusting. Her spirit has been tested, yet it is not defeated. She knows that becoming what hurt her would be the final victory for those who never saw her worth. And she refuses to give them that victory. She refuses to give pain that kind of power. So she chooses to transform, not repeat. She chooses to grow, not mirror. She chooses to evolve, not avenge. Her strength is not measured by how fiercely she fights back, but by how steadily she rises above. Her power is not found in retaliation, but in elevation. Her wisdom is not born from becoming hardened, but from becoming wise. She does not deny her wounds, she alchemizes them. She turns betrayal into boundaries, heartbreak into discernment, disappointment into direction. Pain becomes the teacher she thanks, not the identity she accepts. And in choosing not to become what hurt her, she steps into a new chapter of her becoming. One that demands even greater courage. Because once she refuses to become what harmed her, she must take the final bold step, walking away from anything that continues to dim her spirit. She walks away from what kills her light. There is a sacred turning point in a woman's life when she finally realizes that staying is more dangerous than leaving. That holding on drains more than letting go. That preserving the familiar is not worth losing the fire of her own spirit. So she walks away, not dramatically, not chaotically, but quietly, intentionally, gracefully. She walks away not because she is weak, but because she is wise. She walks away not because she no longer cares, but because she cares about herself enough to stop sacrificing her own glow. She walks away from those who take but never give, from those who drain but never pour back, from conversations that bring no clarity, from connections that lack reciprocity, from expectations that suffocate her spirit, from environments that shrink her potential, from roles she has outgrown. She walks away because she finally understands that the cost of staying is too high. It costs her peace, her glow, her direction, her essence, and she will not lose herself again. Walking away becomes an act of spiritual self-preservation, a return to alignment, a reclaiming of her power. She has learned that her light is sacred, and anything that dims it, disrespects it, or drains it no longer has a place in her life. She is no longer available for relationships that feel like battles. She is no longer accessible to people who love her only when she is convenient. She is no longer attached to situations that keep her hoping instead of growing. She walks away because she now understands her worth. She walks away because she has finally become the woman who protects her energy. She walks away because she has outgrown the version of herself who stayed too long, tried too hard, tolerated too much. And when she walks away, something shifts, her light returns, her clarity returns, her strength returns, her future returns. She feels her spirit rising again, unburdened. She feels her heart expanding again, unafraid. She feels herself becoming again, not drained but restored. Walking away is not abandonment, it is awakening. It is the moment her spirit whispers, "You were never meant to live dim. You were meant to shine." And as she steps into this new space, illuminated from within, she realizes something profound. Because once she learns to walk away from what kills her light, she soon discovers what, and who, helps her light burn even brighter. She knows her worth without waiting for proof. There is a quiet revolution that happens inside a woman the day she stops needing the world to confirm what she already feels in her bones. A moment when she realizes that worth is not negotiated, earned, or granted. It is claimed. It is remembered. It is embodied. She knows her worth now, not because someone told her, not because someone chose her, not because life rewarded her, but because she finally stopped abandoning herself. She no longer waits for validation to feel valuable. She no longer waits for applause to feel accomplished. She no longer waits for love to feel lovable. She no longer waits for recognition to feel seen. Worth for her is no longer something external, a fragile thing that can be taken away by a comment, a rejection, a silence. Worth is now an inner flame, a steady pulse, a truth she returns to even on days she doubts herself. She knows the world often reflects confusion, not truth. People see her through the fog of their own wounds, fears, and limitations. Being misunderstood is not the same as being unworthy. So she no longer hands her identity to the opinions of others. She becomes the one who tells herself, "You matter. You are enough. You are more than enough." She becomes the one who decides what she deserves. She becomes the one who defines the standard of how she should be treated. And the moment she knows her worth without waiting for proof, everything in her life begins to shift. She no longer entertains love that comes with conditions. She no longer chases validation that keeps moving the goalposts. She no longer explains herself to people committed to misunderstanding her. She no longer proves herself to those who benefit from her doubt. Her standards rise, her circle narrows, her peace deepens, her energy sharpens. The world responds differently because she responds to herself differently. Her worth becomes her boundary. Her worth becomes her protection. Her worth becomes her compass. She no longer fears being alone because she finally enjoys her own company. She no longer fears rejection because she no longer rejects herself. She no longer fears falling short because she no longer ties her value to performance. Her worth is not conditional, it is essential. And the more she anchors into it, the more she realizes something profound. Knowing her worth is not just about how she lets others treat her. It is about how she treats herself in the quiet moments no one sees. And that takes her deeper. Because once a woman knows her worth, she must confront the truths she keeps inside, the ones she can no longer hide from herself. She hides nothing from herself. A woman who has learned her worth knows she must live in truth. Not just truth with the world, but truth within herself. And that is the hardest truth of all. She stops hiding from the parts of her heart she used to avoid. She stops distracting herself from the wounds she never wanted to face. She stops silencing the intuition that whispered warnings she ignored. She turns inward with courage. She sits with what hurts. She confronts what's unfinished. She admits what she denied for years. She hides nothing now. Not her desires, not her fears, not her patterns, not her vulnerabilities. She tells herself the truth even when it trembles, even when it threatens to change everything, even when it asks her to let go of what she once begged for. She's honest about who she loves and why. She's honest about what drains her and what feeds her. She's honest about the habits she must release and the habits she must build. She's honest about the difficult conversations she's been postponing. She's honest about the dreams she's placed on pause. She's honest about her loneliness, even the loneliness she hides behind her strength. She no longer uses business as a shield. She no longer uses perfection as a disguise. She no longer uses relationships as an escape. She no longer uses silence to avoid her own voice. She faces herself because she knows that hiding from her truth only delays her transformation. Denial steals time, avoidance steals growth, pretending steals peace. And when she stops hiding from herself, something extraordinary happens. She becomes whole. She becomes authentic. She becomes aligned. She no longer needs others to validate her path because she knows exactly where she stands within herself. And she discovers that her intuition sharpens with every truth she embraces. Her vision clears. Her emotional landscape settles. Her spirit wakes up. Her honesty becomes the ground she stands on, solid, unshakable, real. And yet, as she becomes more honest with herself, she faces one last test, not hiding from the truth that some people, some places, some memories, and some hopes can no longer stay. And so she reaches the threshold of her next becoming. Because once she stops hiding from herself, she realizes she can no longer remain where her truth no longer fits. She must choose love, but never at the cost of herself. She chooses love consciously. She chooses love with wisdom. She chooses love with boundaries. She chooses love with alignment. She knows now that love should not require her to dim her light, silence her voice, or shrink her dreams. Love should not drain her spirit or divide her from herself. Love should not feel like walking on eggshells or waiting to be enough. Real love elevates. Real love respects. Real love nourishes. Real love flows. She knows the difference now between a love that grows her and a love that cages her. Between a love that heals and a love that harms. Between a love that invites her whole self and a love that demands she break herself into pieces. And she chooses carefully. She chooses love that is mutual, steady, and kind. She chooses love that honors her boundaries. She chooses love that respects her no as much as her yes. She chooses love that communicates rather than manipulates. She chooses love that meets her where she stands, not where she is willing to shrink. She will pour into a connection, yes, but not into a void. She will invest in someone, yes, but not in someone who drains her. She will give her heart, yes, but only where it is treasured, not taken for granted. She has learned that the most sacred form of love is self-love, because every relationship begins with the one she holds with herself. She understands now that losing herself is too high a price to pay for anyone's affection. She will not sacrifice her peace. She will not sacrifice her value. She will not sacrifice her joy. She will not sacrifice her purpose. Not anymore. Because she knows what happens when she abandons herself. She begins to disappear inside her own life, and she will never go back to that. So she chooses love, but she chooses herself first. Not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. Not out of ego, but out of alignment. Not out of fear, but out of truth. And that truth becomes her guiding star. A woman who chooses love without losing herself becomes radiant in a way the world cannot ignore. She becomes balanced. She becomes whole. She becomes magnetic. But not because she is seeking love, but because she has become love. She shines differently now. She moves differently now. She loves differently now, because she finally understands that her heart was never meant to shrink. It was meant to rise. And just as she settles into this truth, another realization awakens on the horizon. Because once she chooses love without abandoning herself, she begins to unlock a level of inner power the world rarely sees. She trusts the rhythm of life more than her fears. There comes a moment in every woman's journey when she realizes that life has been speaking to her long before she ever learned to listen. A moment when she understands that fear is loud, but truth is steady. And she begins to feel something ancient inside her. Something that whispers, "You were never meant to be guided by panic. You were meant to be guided by rhythm." She learns that life itself has a pulse, a pattern, a flow. And whenever she resists it, she feels drained, pulled apart by the tension of forcing what was never meant to be forced. But the moment she surrenders, not to defeat, but to alignment, everything inside her softens. She no longer grips outcomes with trembling fingers. Instead, she allows things to unfold as they must, not because she is passive, but because she understands the difference between forcing and flowing. She begins to see her fears for what they are. Small shadows cast by old wounds, memories disguised as warnings, illusions dressed up as logic. Fear shows her the worst versions of the story before it's even begun. But rhythm reminds her that life has never once abandoned her. It has carried her through storms, through loss, through heartbreak, back into herself again and again. She starts trusting the pauses just as much as the progress because she now understands that silence does not mean stagnation. Waiting does not mean wasting. And slow seasons are not punishments. They are preparations. She trusts that if something is meant for her, it will never require her to betray her peace. She trusts that if life takes something away, it is not theft, it is clearing space. She trusts that when something ends abruptly, it is simply because time refused to let her linger in a chapter she has already outgrown. Her fear used to ask, "What if everything goes wrong?" But now her rhythm asks, "What if everything is aligning?" And that one question changes everything. She becomes calmer, softer, stronger. She no longer chases. She chooses. She no longer clings. She listens. She no longer demands. She discerns. Because the moment she begins trusting life more than her fears, she becomes untouchable by chaos and unshaken by uncertainty. And right when she steps fully into this trust, something magical happens. She feels a sense of wonder returning to her spirit, as if life has secretly been waiting for her to reopen that door. And just like that, she realizes something powerful, something that leads into the next truth. When fear no longer leads her, the world becomes new again. 17. She lives with wonder, not weariness. There is a kind of exhaustion that does not come from the body, but from the soul. A heaviness created by years of disappointment, pressure, and expectation. Many women carry it unknowingly, believing that maturity must come wrapped in fatigue. But she chooses something different. She chooses wonder. She chooses to look at life not as a battlefield she must survive, but as a landscape she is allowed to explore. She realizes that every sunrise is a conversation. Every challenge is a teacher. Every moment, no matter how ordinary, is a doorway into awareness. She gives herself permission to feel amazed again. Not naive, not childish, but open. Wonder to her is not blindness to reality. It is a deeper, soul-level vision that sees the sacred in everything. She notices the way her breath steadies when she steps outside. She notices the way people soften when they feel seen. She notices the way life offers little hints, little nudges, little synchronicities that gently guide her toward the right direction. Weariness used to drain her. Wonder revives her. Weariness told her, life is heavy. Wonder whispers, life is happening for you. Weariness taught her to brace for the worst. Wonder teaches her to anticipate the unfolding. She is not pretending life is easy. She is choosing to meet life with curiosity instead of cynicism. She understands that nothing grows in the soil of bitterness. And she refuses to let her spirit harden, just because the world sometimes forgets how to be gentle. She lets herself marvel at the small things, the quiet, the patterns, the softness, the unexpected moments of grace that appear without explanation. Wonder becomes her strength, because wonder keeps her awake. It keeps her alive. It keeps her connected to everything meaningful, everything soulful, everything true. And the more she chooses this wonder, the younger her spirit becomes, not in a superficial sense, but in a profound spiritual one. Her eyes reflect a clarity that can only come from someone who has walked through darkness, but still chooses light, because the world ages you when you stop looking at it with new eyes. But she refuses to let life dull her vision, and as she breathes in this wonder, a realization begins to bloom inside her, quiet yet powerful. Age does not define the state of your spirit. Your spirit defines the way you age. 18. She knows that youth exists as a spiritual state, not a birth date. She understands that true youth has nothing to do with the number of years she has lived, and everything to do with the way she holds her soul. She carries a certain softness not from inexperience but from wisdom. A softness that says, I know life can be harsh, but I choose to remain open. Youth to her is not the absence of wrinkles or mistakes. It is the presence of hope. It is the way she can still laugh from her belly. It is the way she can still dream with intention. It is the way she can still believe in beginnings, even after surviving endings. She knows that the body may grow older, but the soul remains timeless. And when she nurtures her spirit through reflection, joy, connection, silence, she finds herself aging in reverse, not physically, but energetically. Her mind becomes clearer, her heart becomes lighter, her presence becomes brighter. Because youth is not something you lose, it is something you stop practicing. And she refuses to stop. She keeps learning, not because she is unfulfilled, but because she refuses to let her curiosity die. She keeps evolving, not because she is dissatisfied, but because she knows transformation is her birthright. She keeps loving, not because she is untouched by pain, but because she is no longer ruled by it. She knows that life does not end when the candles multiply on the cake. Life ends when the spirit stops glowing, and her glow, subtle, sacred, steady, never dims. Not because circumstances are perfect, but because her inner world is alive, awake, expansive. She carries herself like someone who has lived beautifully and plans to keep living beautifully, no matter how many chapters come and go. For her, youth is a soul decision, a daily intention, a commitment to stay connected to wonder, trust, joy, and play. And as she steps into this truth fully, she understands something profound, that the journey of a woman is never about becoming younger or older, but about becoming more herself. And so, as these truths settle into her spirit, she realizes the quiet conclusion of her entire journey. A woman's power is not in her age, her appearance, or her perfection. It is in the way she returns to herself again and again, with softness, with truth, and with unwavering self-respect in the quiet. After all these truths, something becomes clear. Clear in a way that does not shout but settles deep, like a gentle stone sinking into still water. The journey of a woman is not a straight line, not a ladder, not a competition. It is a spiral, a returning, a rising, then softening, then rising again. It is the continual remembering of who she truly is beneath the noise, the expectations, the wounds, and the roles she once believed she had to play. Each keynote, each realization, each whisper of wisdom has been guiding her toward one sacred essence, that she has always been whole. Her strength was never in the battles she fought, nor in the people she pleased, nor in the storm she survived. Her strength was in the way she kept coming back to herself. Sometimes trembling, sometimes exhausted, sometimes unsure, but always returning, always choosing to notice what is real and release what is heavy. She learned that her power is not loud. It is not aggressive. It is not something she has to prove. Her power is in her awareness, her presence, her clarity, her ability to choose what aligns and walk away from what does not, her bravery to listen to her soul, even when the world demands something else, her willingness to heal instead of harden, to grow instead of shrink, to open instead of close. And through this journey, she discovers something deeper. She was never becoming someone new. She was returning to the woman she was always meant to be. A woman who trusts the rhythm of life more than her fears. A woman who lives with wonder instead of weariness. A woman whose youth comes from her spirit, not her age. A woman who protects her light, honors her truth, and refuses to shrink for anyone. A woman who knows her worth without waiting for permission to claim it. She becomes a woman who no longer walks through life trying to be understood, but a woman who understands herself fully, fearlessly, and beautifully. And that is where her freedom lies. Because the greatest transformation a woman can experience is not changing into someone else, but coming home to herself completely, unapologetically, and with a heart that knows its own value. Her journey is not over. It is simply unfolding. And she moves forward with the quiet confidence of someone who knows she does not need to be more. She only needs to be true. And in that truth, she is already enough.